So excited for everyone to hear this content today. I have so enjoyed this series. Um, I I hope that we get to continue doing more and more of this. I think these are just such important conversations, and I have learned a lot. And I will be completely honest and tell you all that I came into this as a real novice and not really understanding a lot of this. This wasn't something that my generation really talked about a lot. So I've been really grateful for this content. So excited for you guys to hear this content today. My name is Susan Arnold Christian. I work full time from SHPE. My role at SHPE right now today, it changes from time to time, is helping with our programs that we do at the national level from K through 12 all the way through professional members. So if you ever have any questions about SHPE programs and what we offer, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you about that. Um, Thanks so much to our Honeywell partners for doing this series along this journey with us as we've been just kind of exploring the whole topic of mental health and what does this look like for our SHPE members. And I know in the confirmation emails and different things, you've gotten the link for the whole playlist on our YouTube channel. And I encourage you, if you haven't been able to join in on some of the previous content, to go back and look at some of that content, some really good information. And also just want to give a big shout out to our two speakers here, Sarah Diaz and Gustavo Molinar. Really could not have done this content and this program without them. And so thank you so much to both of you. I'm going to be managing the chat. We want this to be as interactive as you want. So please feel free to engage. I don't know about you. I sit in on a lot of Zoom meetings every day, and I promise they are way more fun when you engage and connect with each other in the chat and use all of those tools and resources. So again, thank you to our Honeywell partners for sponsoring this. And I'm going to kick it off and give the baton over to Gustavo and Sarah to lead us through this great content.
Hello, everyone. We are so excited to be here for, I don't want to say final, right? Maybe it's not final, right? But one of our last, let's say, opportunities to get together and talk about this really important topic that now more than ever, we need to be having the conversation on. And today, what we're going to be doing is kind of a wrap up or culmination of all of the workshops we've had. We're going to talk about the theory. We're going to talk about everything that we have learned, but most importantly, we're going to put it into practice. And that's really what our goal is for today. So, as Susan mentioned, it's going to be engaging, probably the most engaging out of all of them. Before we get into this, though, I wanted to introduce myself again quickly. My name is Sarah Diaz. I am a licensed clinical social worker. Mental health is a part of my personal and professional journey, and I love talking about it from both lens. So excited to be here again, co-hosting with Gustavo. So I'm going to turn it over to him before we get started so he can do a quick intro as well.
Hi, y'all. Great to see some of you joining us again, and then also um, as well seeing some new faces. So my name is Gustavo Linar. I am the Texas Campus Advisor for the JED Foundation. So the JED Foundation's a national mental health nonprofit, and I get to work with colleges, universities across the state in terms to promote mental health on their campuses. And that's been part of my career working in higher education, student affairs, and how I started off my college journey as well. And similar to Sada, it's something that you also have to live and practice what you preach. So great to see you all again, and I'm excited to go through some content and hopefully have good conversations later.
Awesome. So now let's kickstart with our first topic, really, which is more of housekeeping. So we want to go through this quick because we really want to get into the purpose, right? The goal behind our workshop today. So keep in mind, we are going to record, or we're recording most of this presentation. We are doing breakouts sort of in the middle, so that won't be recorded for confidentiality purposes, but you will receive after this event the recording of what is part of the workshop. We also have a step up and step down. We don't have a lot of time, and we would love to speak with everybody and love everyone's feedback and advice and your personal stories, but sometimes we don't have time for everything. So we do want you to participate. Susan is going to be on the chat, so please feel free to add any comments or questions on there, and we'll get to the questions towards the end. The other one is we don't have too many people today, but please keep your microphone muted unless we prompt you with any questions. But also feel comfortable to have your camera on or off. As presenters, we would love to see all of your beautiful faces, but we also know that it's the end of the day and that you may be winding down. So whatever feels more comfortable for you. And then the last thing is please keep in mind that everyone's experience is valid and can vary. So please be respectful of one another because we don't know what each other is experiencing in the moment. With that being said, let's do a quick rundown of the agenda. The one before. Perfect. So we're going to start with some reflections. So happy Hispanic Heritage Month. We officially kicked off our month a few days ago, and we're going to run until October. But this is also an informative workshop, but a time to celebrate everybody. So happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Like I mentioned, we're really going to dive into how can we put into practice everything that we have been talking about leading up to today. So if you haven't joined prior ones, you're all set. You're good to go. We're gonna do some review and we're gonna do a quick maybe pop quiz on what we have been going through so far. Then we're gonna do our breakouts, and lastly, we're gonna end with, as always, some self-care strategies and some resources for you all. So with that being said, let's get into the reflections. So this is really what's going to kick off the engagement. And please feel free, like I mentioned before, if you want to, get off mute and participate, or if you want to participate in the chat, that is totally okay. We probably have time maybe for 2 answers. So this is what we're looking into as we kick off Hispanic or Latina Heritage Month and we head into the fall. What resonates with you all? So here are some questions. What is a part of your identity or culture that you would want to explore? When it comes to mental health, what is something you'd like to continue working on? Number 3 is how will you advocate and have discussions with your community or network on the topics of mental health? And the last thing is, what do you need or what do I need to stay connected to my purpose? So if anybody would like to participate, this is just a fun reflection time before we kick things off. And if you'd like to do it in the chat, please just be sure that you add the number of the question so we know which one you're answering and you don't have to copy and paste the entire thing. Are we starting off too strong right in the beginning of the workshop? All right, let's try number 1. I think that might be like the most open one. So what is a part of your identity or culture that you would like to continue exploring? And I can be a representation. I think the part of my culture that I would love to continue exploring is cooking and cooking traditional or family recipes. I've always been on the opposite end, not the cook. And now as I get older, I would love to be able to cook for my family and my future family and kind of continue that tradition. So that is a part of my identity and culture that I want to continue exploring. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Anna.
Oh, we can't hear too well.
Hi, this is
Oh, there you
Anna.
go.
There you go.
Perfect. Hello.
Hi. I'm thinking because of how I was when I grew up, there was always lots of dancing along with food and music that I'm beginning to find myself looking for records of
Mhm.
the old music. I found a company who actually produces new records, but they actually record it from an original record, so you can hear all the crackles and
Mm.
the true sounds of how it came out, and whether it's the Fania Records or some other artists from various backgrounds. So I'm slowly but surely beginning a record collection of
That's
my
awesome.
good old childhood days.
That's amazing. And that is definitely a huge part of most cultures, right? Is connecting through music.
Oh,
That's
yes.
awesome.
And the memories is
Yeah.
always the sound. That particular song will bring a memory. Oh, I remember. I may not remember what happened last week, but I'll remember when I was at a party with family and, when I was 10 years old.
Mm. And also for our mental health, right? Linking it back to mental health, music is very, very powerful.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I see in the chat, Lonnie says, I want to try cooking more recipes and traditional foods as I moved away from home and am living alone for the first time. This definitely resonates. Probably a lot of first gens also that have left home and want to continue the traditions. You want to get connected to your campus Latinx Cultural Center. That's amazing. Definitely make it a bucket list item for the fall. Definitely a priority. I want to continue practicing folklorico. How do you say it? I have never heard of that. I guess like folk dance? That's awesome. And looking into creating an on-campus group. That's amazing. Literature, I want to read more in Spanish and more Latinx stories and experiences. This is awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. We thought that it would be special clubbing in Miami, okay? And yes, Mexican folk dance, okay? This is amazing. These are all things that tie us to our culture. And yes, we wanted to talk about it because it is Hispanic Heritage Month, but we also want you guys to keep in mind that all of this strengthens our emotional wellness as well. And our well being is being tied to our culture in a positive way, keeping up with the traditions in a way that feels comfortable for us. So, thank you so much for sharing. Now, as we transition a little bit, we're going to go into our review of the last few workshops, and Gustavo will lead us with that.
Thanks, Sarah. So this is not a true pop quiz. There's nothing that you need to prepare or anything like that. But we hope that you've been able to attend our previous workshops. If you haven't, we'll learn alongside here. So the way that we will do this is if you go to menti.com, as it says here at the top of the screen, and then use the code 12983080, and you should be able to join this little Quizlet, that type of thing. So menti.com, I just put it in the chat, so you should be, if you're joining from a computer, you can click into it and then join, and then the code is 12983080. So we have about 3 folks here so far. So last time we talked about strengths and barriers. And so familismo was a concept that we talked about. And so this is kind of asking you, what is familismo? And also, is it a strength or is it a barrier? And why do you think that is? So I'll wait for a few bit as you think about it, as you join, and then we can talk about what familismo is and if it's a strength and barrier. We have 8 folks. We should have 1 or 2 more. And then once you're ready, if you can start replying once you're ready. So is familismo a cultural barrier or is it a strength? And then why? And this answer is totally valid. Not sure what that is, and that's fine.
As we get the results, we can do a quick wrap up. So familismo is basically the cultural value that is found within the Latinx, Latina, Hispanic communities that prioritizes family loyalty and closeness above all else, right? So it's the fact that we are very collective. We like to do things within our families. And we had mentioned in prior workshops that it's something that is either within the barriers or within a strength for our culture.
And then last time we also talked about how this can be your relatives, right? Your blood family, or it can be a close-knit community or family that you've made for yourself. So we got another response. It can be both. It can be a barrier if seen as not opening up with challenges outside of the family and asking for help. Again, it can be both, but it can also hinder us from receiving support due to stigma. I think it's a strength, but it also a source of pain. I moved away from my family and feel the ache of losing my support system, but I still have the support from far away and can grow individually. It can be a strength. You can always have a support system. Anybody else? I see we've gotten 4 responses out of 12, so we'd love to hear any other perspectives. I'll give you one more minute here. Strength is in the sense that there is a care and unbreakable bond, but it can be a boundary from a financial sense of the expectations to care for elderly parents. Absolutely. So there's no right or wrong in a sense. It can be both, absolutely, because as Saras was mentioning that it's that sense of close knit, being close to family, being there, caring for one another, putting family first too. So it can be depending on your relationship with family members, or again with the community members that you deem as your family. It can be both, right? I definitely know that we have complex relationships with everyone, but particularly family members, and so it can be both. So we'll move on to the next question in terms of time. So can anyone mention or name some examples of stigma in the Latinx community? So what are some examples of stigma? So for example, um, things that we hear about mental health in the community. So you can write it in Spanish if you like. You can write it in English, or examples that you've seen in general. Don't air out the dirty laundry. Absolutely. It's not something that you should be talking to about anyone beyond us. Aggressive moms, not present fathers, whether they're physically or not physically present. Absolutely. Anybody else would like to reply to? So, what are some examples of the stigma in the community, or how maybe does it show up? Bad tempers can be intimidating, right? So, not engaging with certain folks, or kind of folks kind of being turned away if you're acting a certain way. Machismo, absolutely, right? Kind of this front that you're very tough, especially in men, and that you should not have feelings, or that you should grow up and do that. Therapy is para los locos, right? So therapy is for crazy people, and only that, and or therapy is only for the sick. So you should only go through therapy, or don't even talk about therapy and mental health, right? And women who are afraid of using their voice, absolutely. So being silenced, things like that. So other examples that we've had in the past is ¿qué van a decir la gente? So what will the people say? We've talked about therapy is for crazy folks. It's just nerves, or you just need to eat, right? Or if you just go outside and smell the flowers, something else, go do something else, and it'll be fine. And then God is the only one that can help. So those are other examples that we've talked about. And then do some see the concept of sana sana as a stigma? Does it simplify the issue too much? Absolutely, you're right. So you can definitely argue that just if we have this temporary fix, like it'll just get better, right? And of course, I should start talking to therapist. If you maybe talk to Sana individually, she may tell you that it's a process, right? And I know that, I've been going to therapy for a few years, but definitely not anywhere close to being that at a point where I feel like I'm great. So it can definitely be oversimplified. So again, moving on for sake of time. So this is a multiple choice, and it says which is not a barrier to mental health support. So which is not a barrier. So familismo, accessibility, affordability, and awareness. So which is not a barrier. So far, awareness seems to be not a barrier. All the others are. All right, most people are selecting awareness. Anybody else want to reply? So mental health support can, I guess, is broad here, but support in terms of accessing the actual care, right? So accessibility, right? So maybe you just don't have insurance to be able to make an appointment. Affordability, that definitely is intertwined with accessibility there. And then awareness would be the answer that we thought about. But I can see how familismo, right? So again, leaning more towards your family or to the people in your network rather than to support from a professional. So in a sense, they're all technically correct, that they can all be barriers, but we were looking, awareness is one here. So what are some questions to ask your therapist? So we've talked in the past that, there's, um, as we try to look for help, there may be certain questions that you can ask your therapist to make sure that it's a good fit, right? Or that it aligns with your values, that it aligns with what you need. So what are some questions that you can ask their therapist? So here we have one. Have you worked with someone of my same cultural background as before? Absolutely. I will also point out that it doesn't have to be just because they share your same background or a perceived same background. It doesn't mean that they automatically get it, right? So it's in that first consultation session, right? Definitely ask that question of, have you worked with someone with my identities? Here they are. If you feel comfortable, have you worked with different cultural or immigrant backgrounds? What are the steps to fix or rewire some behaviors? I'll rephrase this and say, what is your approach to therapy, right? So there's different approaches and ways that they do it. So think about physical wellness and how there's, Western medicine, Eastern medicine, holistic approaches. Similarly in therapy, there's different methods to approaching therapies or talk, even what we think about therapy, which is psychotherapy or talk therapy. There's different types of therapy. There's physical things. So I can go into all of them and list them all, or if you want to Google them. But there's definitely different ways that different therapists approach your session. What therapy method? So that's the same one that you specialize in. Not everyone is going to be specialized. Specializations and certifications are definitely expensive, or they take time to get training. So some will have some will only have one. So if you're looking for something in particular, that's something to do there. And then what is your philosophy on therapy and the role of the participant in therapist? Absolutely. So you definitely again, everyone is looking for something different, but if you're looking for someone that's more of putting you first, making sure that you um, are they're more there for to like as a reflection, or they should be there more for a reflection. But again, how do you kind of hold or host your therapist? Why can't I concentrate in school and work? So kind of seeing what your priority will be for your therapy session. Is that anything else that you wanted to add here?
No, I think these are all great questions, and always remember that it's going to be personalized to you. There may be some things that I would like to ask that Gustavo wouldn't, and we can't go off of, what others say. So you have to personalize it and make sure that it's something that you feel comfortable with, and that's something that's resonating with you.
Absolutely. I always look for someone that my first language was Spanish. I always look for someone that speaks Spanish or at least understand it, because sometimes I can't express myself in English, since there's some just from phrases that don't translate, or in the heat of the moment it just comes out in Spanish. So there's that. We'll go to another multiple choice. So which is not a self-care strategy? So is it unplugging? Is it setting boundaries, doom scrolling, gratitude and reflection? So which is not a self-care strategy? So we have so far doom scrolling is winning here, 7. Unplugging. So unplugging here would be kind of getting off electronics, getting even you can extend that, just kind of taking time to yourself. So usually that is seen as a self-care strategy. I can see how someone can say that it is not, right? You also don't, that can be an avoidance mechanism or a coping mechanism. So I can be good, but usually can also be bad. Setting boundaries is definitely a good way to self-care and care for yourself and what you need. And of course, gratitude and reflection. But doom scrolling is the one that we were obviously looking for here. But for some too, that's a good way to just disconnect with reality for a little bit, right? Sometimes you want to look at cute pictures of puppies on Instagram or TikTok or whatever that is. So, and that's totally okay. Or whatever you're looking at, but sometimes you just need to do that. So we've talked about stigma in the community. So what are some ways to have conversations about mental health or to bring up mental health with your family or with friends, especially in the community when there's so much stigma? So what are some phrases or how are some methods that you may do that? So sharing your personal story or using I statements, absolutely. What are you doing for self-care? I'm looking for ideas, right? So bringing up mental health in other ways. We don't realize it, but how was your day, right? And kind of reflecting on your day or kind of sharing how we're doing is a good way. Um, Watch media where it is depicted and having conversation about it. And I know more and more mental health is brought up in TV shows and other things. So you can definitely say, hey, they were talking about mental health, you know, it impacted me this way. What do you think? Or stuff like that. Going to the park exercise is absolutely kind of getting disconnected. Again, going outside or putting more into your physical wellness. So there's a few more questions, but we'll stop here for the sake of time. And so now we're actually going to go into breakout groups. So we do have two breakout groups. And so for here, we're going to separate out and you can pick and choose if you're both. But we have one for students, primarily obviously undergraduate students, and then we have one for professionals. So we'll open those up and we'll spend a few minutes here kind of talking through some case scenarios or just debriefing and reflecting a little bit further with that particular group. So we'll open those up and then we can self-select and come back in about 20-25 minutes.
Yeah, and I will stop recording, but I will share with the link when we do the recording that people can see what those case scenarios were that you guys were talking through. So we'll post the full slides with it too. But I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.